Welcome back to the best form of anti-Monday blues in your life. It's Fresh Rubber. Hello, Gav. Welcome back. We're going to talk a little bit about our differing views on the Monaco Grand Prix. And you're going to try and, I think, change my mind as to, why it was the best Monaco Grand Prix that you can remember. Is that how we're going to do this, Gav?
Dear audience, just to let you into what happened a few moments ago, just before we press record, I said to Jason, that was the best Monaco Grand Prix I've ever seen. I thought it was really fun. There was just so many jokers in the pack. There was so many moments to kind of chat about. There was so much confusion. There was glory. There was DNFs. I think more DNFs than I've made. I don't know. Was that the most DNFs you've ever seen, Jace? Only 15 people made it over that line by the end of that. Absolutely. It was nuts. As the Irish say, may the road rise up to meet you. Well, it certainly did in this race, didn't it, Jace?
Oh God,
I
love that phrase.
How could you not be entertained by today's like compared to last year? Just think back to last year.
Oh yeah,
and we had the mandatory two stop. It was a procession. It was it was dull last year, but this year I think had all the ingredients.
Williams pit crew thought that it was last year. They didn't get the memo that it was 2026, not 2025. They thought that they could dust that old playbook off and give it another go. Didn't work out for them. And I thought it was so fitting that before the race started, you texted me and said, Max is going to be the Joker at Monaco today. And he was anything but. He was gone basically on the formation lap. It was like, oh, okay, we've got a very different race on our hands.
It was nuts. Like you've got. I mean, I was so thrilled by quali. I mean, it was milliseconds. I thought Max was going to be P1, and then obviously Kimi, the boy genius, swoops in and just steals it by milliseconds. So we've got Kimi, the new heir to the throne, and we've got Max sitting there next to him, pointing his nose like Max always does, like direct, kind of this huge angle, ready to take off. And then it was the firework that didn't go off. And to be honest with you, Jace, at that moment when Max's car on the grid from P2 just didn't work, essentially just broke, I was like, oh, this is going to be boring. This is just going to be Antonelli just running away into the distance, which he kind of did, by the way.
That's pretty much what happened.
What I was longing for is Max, maybe the greatest of all time, depending on what you think, or certainly the greatest of a generation, versus the new young pup rising through the ranks. And we didn't get it. We just never got to see Max versus Antonelli. So initially I was just like, this is going to be dull. But I don't think it was dull. Like, what did you find hard? Tell me why you didn't think this was the best Monaco you've ever watched.
Okay, right. So in the build-up and all throughout the weekend, the pundits have been throwing out all these stats about how difficult it is to overtake at Monaco, and how the last time there was an on-track overtake for the lead was in 1982, and it was between Alain Prost and some other person. And by the way, it didn't pan out because Alain Prost still won the race. And the last couple of years has been like one max overtake on track, for the Monaco Grand Prix, let's say for the last couple of years. So the whole build up to this thing is like the difficulty, the precision you need to bring, yes, the glitz, the glamour, all of that, but the difficulty of actually having entertaining racing throughout the race. And at the start of the race, that's when all the cars are as close as they're likely to be throughout the entire race. So that's like the moment when all the overtaking potential is there. If you think, last year when the McLarens were zooming off, Norris had a lockup coming into turn one, and there was some risk that Charles would be able to get around him coming up into the casino square. There was all this drama. The year before that, I think that was when Sergio Perez crashed into Hulkenberg or something like that, coming up that after turn one. So the start of the race is when all the drama is there. That's like the heightened moment, and then it kind of pans out from there. But then for Max to just have an engine go pop on the grid means that there's a one-car gap back from the leader to whoever's behind. And whilst the Ferraris have been fast starting, which is their hallmark this year, Mercedes and Kimi seem to have figured out their bad starts. So it was like, well, there goes the drama. And we didn't even have an same machinery equivalent rival in the form of George Russell like we had last week in Canada. They were going hammer and tongs basically at the same pace for the first half of the race. We didn't even have that because George didn't show up this weekend except to get his penalties. So for me, it was just like a big, down thumb. That was not a great start to the race. But I will admit that there was some drama, and partly, I think you'd have to say, Red Bull still had a card to play in this race. Would you not, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, the Hadjar obviously kind of eventually finishing in P3, fantastic result for Red Bull. I think probably for me, the reason I found it exciting is because everything just felt like it was going wrong for everyone. That's what I found. That's what I found exciting. Like, cars weren't working. Lando's car had power unit issues. Hadjar was basically moaning and crying and whining the whole way around as he was desperately, defending against George. It was kind of cars weren't working. Then the pit lane, the pit lane became almost like the star of the show as we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars get 5-second penalties. In fact, no, it was 5 cars plus Gasly got it twice. How did Gasly get it twice?
Because Russell didn't serve his first penalty, so he had
wait. Let's just these guys, right? Dear listener, these guys have a button that they press that kind of reduces the throttle and the revs so that when they cross the line into the pit lane, their cars go 60 kilometers an hour and no faster. They were all pressing the button. They were all just like, this is like the most basic thing these drivers do is hit that button. They don't really mess up. You very rarely get a speeding in the pit lane moment. And suddenly we're just seeing everyone get, kind of half the field get these penalties. So in my mind, I think, and some of the commentators' minds, there's something actually wrong here with either all their machines or the actual, the way that they're analysing speed coming into the pit lane. And then, like you say, Jace, poor old George. I mean, we could spend this whole podcast talking about, the woes of George. The poor guy gets that. And then he doesn't stop at his pit stop later on in the race. In fact, he has himself to blame because he wasn't told to box. It's this kind of moment where he saw the pit entry. There was a safety car. He saw the pit entry. He saw everyone piling down the pit lane to kind of change tyres. And he followed everyone in. And Mercedes just weren't ready for him, were they? They weren't ready. And they certainly weren't ready. They certainly weren't ready to make him do his, stand and go penalty spot.
For sure. And you think about, I would put this more on the team than I would on the driver, because if you remember, Antonelli came by the scene of the accident just after it happened, and he came by too soon for the team to react for Antonelli to come into the pits. So Antonelli went around another lap and then pitted. And if you remember, George pitted right behind Antonelli. They double stacked. So the time it takes for Antonelli to get around is about 1:20. And for whatever point George was on the track when the accident happened, he had about 1:20 for him and the team to communicate about what was going to be done. He didn't come straight into the pit immediately. It was at least a lap later. So to me, I think, I haven't listened to the transcripts or the radio messages between them, but that screams to me like team unreadiness. And I have a little bit of sympathy for the team because Bernie Collins was saying at some point on the weekend that sometimes communication at Monaco between the pit wall and the garage crews can be difficult because of the tight, the proximity of all the bits and pieces at Monaco. They've got to squeeze it in, and the pit wall's actually elevated above the pit lane. So there's just been a miscommunication cascade. But the consequences of that for George are staggering, because he was going to be a net P5 or maybe P6 at that point, but because of that error of actually touching the car before the penalty was served, he had to then do the harsher penalty, which was a drive-through, which put him right back to 12th or 13th.
actually put it. I think it actually put him back to 14th or 15th. He came out 15th.
Was he chasing Bortoletto?
Yeah, he came out 15th.
Yeah. So the ramifications for him is massive. And I remember during the race, I was thinking, if it ends as it does, Antonelli is going to have something like a 55-point lead in the championship over his teammate. And as it stands, he's got a 68-point lead over Russell, and Hamilton's just jumped up ahead of Russell in the championship.
This is what's nuts, Jace. Lewis Hamilton is number 2 in the drivers' standings right now. Like, this is... It's just
the
nuts.
highest he's been since Abu Dhabi 2021.
Are we basically seeing, like, Piastri coming 3rd last year? We're kind of seeing it again with George. Like, It's happened much quicker. Let's remind ourselves that Kimi has won 5 out of the first 6 races of the season, and we talked a bit about this European leg, this kind of, this ghost that might haunt Kimi. He had a terrible rookie year European leg where everyone was questioning Toto's choice of Kimi. Was it a huge mistake? Was this kid just basically just not cut out for it?
Especially in Monaco, because he crashed in Monaco.
Especially in Monaco. Well, he started... look back at last year in Monaco. He started plumb last year, and then a year later, he's qualifying P1. So, the kid's been on a journey. There are signs of, brilliance, like, that are getting harder and harder to argue against. I think luck has been on his side, but, like, poor George. I don't think George deserves to be P3 in the Drivers' Championship. I genuinely don't. Like, I think... and he certainly doesn't deserve to be this far behind Kimi. He's not that much worse than Kimi, and yet here we are. Here we are. This is where we're at.
I was looking at the head-to-head from the lap times perspective this weekend, and there was a big delta between them.
Yep.
So the same George Russell didn't show up this weekend, and on top of so that's why he qualified poorly, and he also had this. The gods didn't smile on him at all during the race. So the consequence to him is he leaves Monaco kind of, tail between his legs. And it's probably, I don't know how you'd adjust this for the historical points systems, but it's like one of the biggest gaps that he would, if he is able to claw back 68 points, 69 points to get ahead between now and the end of the season, it will be one of the biggest comebacks in F1 history if he manages to pull it off. So... It's a monumental ask for him.
How far back was Lando behind Piastri at the greatest extremity last year?
I want to say 35?
35, 40,
It was less than 40, yeah.
It was less than 40.
The other one that I saw is Verstappen in 2022 was 44 points behind Leclerc after 3 races because he had...
Okay.
That was his first DNF in ages. Remember his car caught fire in Australia. Anyway, so it's fair to say that 68 points is huge. Proportionally, it's huge, but also it's like 3 DNFs for Kimi, and that's certainly possible for George to make that comeback and fix the deficit. But man, it's a big ask. It seems like a big ask given the momentum, right? He's the youngest ever name your stat, and he's just throwing another one on the pile. Youngest ever winner at Monaco, according to Toto, and chuck a pinch of salt on that one. But yeah, Kimi's just got the momentum. He was rock solid throughout the weekend. He actually did speed in the pit lane, but I think it was in practice. So he learns quickly as well. He picked that up and said, I'm not going to do that again. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for George to pull this one back.
It is for sure. Look, another reason I thought this was a fantastic race is because when you get some of the big hitters out through no fault of their own, in Max's case, through no fault of their own, in Lando's case, through arguably no fault of his own, in Leclerc's case, what you end up getting instead is 2 racing bulls, Lindblad and Liam Lawson in P5 and C6. You get Pierre Gasly in P7. You get Alex Albon in P8. You get Esteban Ocon in 9. You get Fernando Alonso in P10. You're
forgetting Hadjar. You get Hadjar on the podium.
I mean, in my mind, Hadjar deserves to be up there. But and he's in a Red Bull. He's in a premium. He's in a top 4 team. But
can we put a pin in that? I want to come back to that topic.
Yeah,
let's go on the midfield.
He annoyed me today, by the way, with all his whinging and moaning.
Yeah,
but listen. What you get in a race like this, with all the chaos and confusion, is you get some other teams getting to score points, and I'm all for that. And it's good for those. It's good for the Leclercs and the Maxes and the Landos to kind of experience some trouble and let other people through. Now, what did you think about the fact that the road started falling apart at the end of this race? It's like we're talking about Monaco. We're talking about a principality with zero tax, where millionaires live, and they can't fix a flipping road.
I thought the road was like diamond lined. Surely, it's got the best quality tarmac.
Clearly not. That was nuts.
Yeah. But I think you could say similar things in a way about Vegas. And remember, they had a drain cover explode the back of Sainz's car. Look, it's one of those things about non-permanent circuits, right? There's shenanigans possible. And as with Vegas, when it's not a racing track, they open it up to the regular cars. So that's trucks and cars and bikes and pedestrians wandering around the streets of Monaco. So I think it was a really bad look, and they made a lot of noise about it on the broadcast. And if you listen to the drivers who were affected by that, Leclerc and Stroll, they both said nothing about the surface. They said everything about their cars. They blamed the cars more than they blamed the surface. So, you got to take it with a grain of asphalt, I suppose. What's the big deal with a little bit of bumpiness and uneven track surface? It was a little bit shocking to see Leclerc have the same kind of accident that a Stroll would have. I don't put those two in the same category in my mind, so that was weird. I guess it's just one of the things that can happen when you've got a circuit that's not permanent. But they did also make a bit of noise about it having been resurfaced throughout the year. So whoever got that contract,
will not be getting that contract again.
Out.
Did you see that? I've never seen anything like it. The slow motion post race, where they basically showed, if you didn't catch this, that there was not a huge section, like a bedroom size section of the road that had clearly been resurfaced. They showed it to us at the beginning of the race. It was kind of smooth and clean and flat, but by the end of the race, after like 60 odd laps, like huge chunks of this asphalt road surface were coming up. And when they zoomed in really slowly on both Stroll and Leclerc's crash, what you see is these kind of hot, molten kind of tyres, these gluey, sticky tyres, picking up shards. I kid you not, like about half the size of your thumb, shards of asphalt that were sticking like little kind of like, I don't know, volcanic rocks to these tyres. And they both went off at exactly the same place. So I wonder, Leclerc was very critical of his car. He was saying he wanted Hamilton's setup going forward. It wasn't working from him. There was problems with the braking. But like both of those cars picked up a huge chunks of asphalt onto their tyres and went into the same bit of wall. So look, I'm no expert, but I would argue that there was something with that road surface that was causing accidents in that particular corner.
I think I remember there being some time left on the table during qualifying as well. Coming through the last corner, there were some drivers that were sliding around. So there's definitely something to be said for that. On Leclerc and Hamilton, though, those two were like, you couldn't put a piece of paper between them in terms of their sheer pace, lap time, and performance this weekend. So I think it was Hamilton got the fastest lap at the right time, whereas Leclerc and he were basically, if you look at all of the laps combined, they're like very much neck and neck. And it's just unlucky for Leclerc that he got on the wrong side of that in Q3 on Saturday and wasn't able to be ahead, because then he lost out in the strategy and in the race. But it's like, I love seeing Lewis back on the podium, on the second step of the podium. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets to that top step again for the first time in red, which would be amazing. But to see them going like so competitively evenly matched is fantastic. And it speaks to, I think it speaks highly of both of them, because I know you rate Leclerc very highly. I do too. But the issues that Lewis has had in the last year in terms of just poor communication with the pit wall, not following his desires or requests in terms of creating the car in the way that he likes it to be, the kind of apparatus around him. I think his trainer's come back as well. She left.
He has, yeah. Yep.
So, the whole Lewis Hamilton apparatus seems to be there again, and it's firing. And if it's making him on par with Leclerc, and if Leclerc's saying, I want what Hamilton's got, give me some of that, I think the other drama of the season is going to be, what happens between those two drivers who have that tough but gentlemanly style of racing between them. I think it's going to be some spicy sauce coming up for the rest of the season. I'm all for it. I mean, some more of that, please. A little bit less of the whole Antonelli just sort of disappearing down the road and winning the next 10 races on the trot. Yeah, a little bit of
you're
Ferrari
right.
spice,
Look, if Kimi's going to run away with this, which it looks like he will, I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We felt that about Piastri last year. But if he is, you're exactly right, Jace. What we want is some other battles going on. Interested to hear what you think about Hadjar, but just to say, we would love to see, Hadjar and Max going at it. We want to see Hamilton and Leclerc going at it. I mean, it's hard to feel excited about Oscar and Lando going at it, because it just feels like the McLaren is just not there as a car this year. It's just, I don't quite know what's happened. Like, did they kind of give everything they had last year and then just not have it? Do they just have nothing to give this year? It's weird. There's so many technical issues. They just feel mediocre. They feel like, I don't know. What do you think? What's going on for McLaren?
I think with McLaren, from my read of it, it's that they've got performance when it shows up and when it sticks around. Piastri notwithstanding. When you look at it from a sort of... So Norris had a tricky first day at practice. He had power unit issues on the Friday. So he lost, I think, almost all of FP1 and a lot of FP2. So he was coming in severely compromised to qualifying, but he still managed to perform well. Yeah, like Norris's hallmark, I think it seems, is performing when things are really going poorly against him lately. And that's happened quite a lot. They've also had, 2 races now on the trot where the power unit or the battery, some kind of energy deployment thing has let them down when Norris has been in, reasonably strong shape. I think the results don't speak to the potential of the team. And I think they're feeling the frustration of that, because they're sitting there going, yet another failure. A poor qualifying in Monaco puts Piastri P7. It's like, what are you going to do from P7 unless you get lucky and 3 cars ahead of you crash out or DNF? And that's exactly what happened for Piastri. So he's happy to pick up a P4 through no work of his own other than just finishing the race. But it's like, I think it's there. You're just not seeing it in the results. That's my take on McLaren at the moment. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I just kind of always come back to thinking, like, how are Mercedes, given that, Mercedes give their engine, sell their engine to McLaren, like, I'd love to speak to someone to understand, like, how Mercedes are extracting with the same engine so much more, because it doesn't feel like aero issues. It doesn't feel like they've built, I think they have built a more aerodynamically competitive car, but it's more like the points of failure of that Mercedes engine seem to be happening more to McLaren. And again, like, I can't speak as an expert on this, but is it the way they've kind of set that engine up within the car? I don't know, but they're not getting the results that that Mercedes are getting out of it anywhere near.
Did you notice with the Cadillacs, they both had issues with brakes catching fire?
Yeah.
They had that, I think, on the Friday, and then Bottas retired from the race. So I think F1's a massively complicated sport, and I point out Cadillac only to say, I think the reason why they were having issues with the brakes was because this circuit had a different dynamic between energy braking and engine braking. and that the difference in those two for Cadillac was causing issues with the way that their brakes were set up. So the brakes weren't operating properly in the right window, and they couldn't get the cooling or the something else happening. So they were having recurring brake failure issues and burning brakes, partly as a result of the formula that we're dealing with now, and partly because of Monaco, because of the nature of this weird circuit where you're never really fully on throttle and you're also never really fully off as well. But can we talk Hadjar? I also was super frustrated by whingy Hadjar. This is something I've seen before he came into F1 and seemed to be like a nice, happy-go-lucky dude. But he when it's not going his way, he gets a real whinge on. And the thing that jumps out to me that I think is problematic is that we're looking at Hadjar being on the podium finally as like a good thing. I think that's a problem. I think that points to problems at Red Bull, that we are still sort of celebrating the second driver managing to stay on the podium, kind of getting lucky in a way because 2 or 3 drivers ahead of him didn't finish the race. Max didn't finish the race. He was ahead of him. Norris was behind him, actually. So who else was there? Leclerc crashed out. So Hadjar getting his way onto the podium, qualifying where he did, it's just like it's not good enough when Max is there putting it on P2. And so I think there's something about the narrative for Hadjar that bothers me. We should be seeing more from him because he's got the talent. I wouldn't have said the same about a Yuki. I don't think I would have said the same about a Ricciardo. Certainly wouldn't have said the same about Albon or Perez. But I think with Hadjar, there's just something like he's failing to deliver, and that bothers me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like just on listening to him on the radio, like, because I'm really behind him as a driver. I mean, I'm behind everyone, but like I had very high hopes for him. I just think it's weird that when I hear some drivers complain, like Leclerc or like Max complains a huge amount on the radio. It feels kind of like, I don't know, it feels kind of like ballsy and strong. But when Hadjar complains on the radio, it feels really self-piteous. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, in fact, it's more than that. It sounds like he's panicking at the same time as losing his temper, at the same time as feeling really sorry for himself. And if you've got kids, you know this kind of vibe. Like when the whole world just becomes about them, they're not really looking for a solution. They're actually just complaining and lambasting everyone. So like, I agree. I don't like hearing him the whole way through panicking and complaining. I did think he did a brilliant job at keeping George behind him. His car, there was real issues with his car today. Obviously, his teammate Max never made it off the line, but he was really struggling with power deployment. And I thought it was impressive the way he defended George today. So I don't know if I fully agree with you, but yeah, like, should we be expecting more from him? This is his second year his first year at Red Bull, right? I don't know, like, Kimi had an awful rookie year for a massive chunk of it. Do we need to just give Hadjar a bit more time? And also look at who he's up against, like, in terms of a teammate. It's kind of, you go to that team thinking, how can I ever shine against Max? Although that's exactly what he has to do, and kind of what Kimi has done this year. But I kind of want to give him next year before I make that judgment.
Yeah, fair point. You're much more measured in your assessment of things.
But I did find him incredibly annoying on the radio today.
Maybe my thing about Hadjar is, it might be unfair, so I'll be willing to say that, I think he's got it in him. That's the thing. Like, I have belief that Hadjar could be on the podium consistently, that he's got what it takes in terms of raw pace to be able to go toe-to-toe with Max, and we're just not seeing it. But yeah. Maybe we need to give him a bit more time. On the pit issues, I did see something which is a theory. I don't know if it's true, but I'll just kind of put it out there and see what you think. You know how with the FIA, they measure things differently? It's sort of like a lovely inconsistency, shall we say. It's sort of like a bit of whimsy to your F1. They just do things differently. You know how if you're going around behind the safety car with a virtual safety car, they don't tell you how fast to go. They tell you the latest time of arrival at a certain point on track, and you got to figure it out yourself how fast to go from here to there. It's like that with the pit lane. They don't measure, apparently, the kph that you're doing. They don't look at the speedo and say, oh, you've gone over just by 1 kilometer. They actually measure the distance of the pit lane, and they say between here and here you've got this many seconds to cover that. So if you deviate or find a faster way from A to B, as racing drivers will do, you can cover that distance in shorter time without going above 60 kph. And so that's one theory going around as to why so many drivers were getting dinged, because the pit lane is not straight. It's got this sort of banana shape to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so willing to believe that. When I heard that that's how they measured it, do you know what it made me think of?
Tell me.
Driving through a tunnel in Sydney, or in fact in London or anywhere, and they kind of have those variable speed limit cameras, and they take a picture of you as you enter the tunnel, and the picture as you come out, and then they obviously a computer crunches the numbers to tell you what your average speed was. So what I'm assuming is what the technology they're using is exactly that, a variable speed camera. And I can't help but agree with you. Like, did all the teams find a quicker way to stay at 60 but go down the pit lane? Probably. I mean, you don't get 6 people getting that penalty unless everyone's kind of getting it wrong. So yeah, that was nuts. That was fun. Some people paid the price more heavily than others. Poor old George. But yeah.
What did you think of Gasly's race?
I thought it was phenomenal. I thought he did.
Totally agree.
They were the two battles, right? There was the Hadjar George battle and the Norris-Gasly battle, were just like it. The problem with Monaco is it's hard because I don't know if you felt this, but I felt like, is it harder in this new regulation set of cars that we've just got this year? Does Monaco feel even harder? Like when there was DRS, if you kind of got within 1 second out of that final corner and you had the opening straight, I felt like there used to be a few more overtakes with DRS. Do you feel that, or am I just imagining that DRS
more overtakes at Monaco?
That DRS was more effective than the boost button? Because I don't think the boost button did anything here.
No, I agree, except for Arvid Lindbergh.
But I have seen DRS. But I have seen DRS overtakes on that opening straight before.
Have you? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You got a better memory than me, because I don't remember overtakes there. The overtakes I remember have been, oh man, was it 2 years ago when there was rain at Monaco? And I think it was Gasly went around Ricciardo in the wet, coming into the swimming pool section. That was epic. If you haven't seen that, you don't remember that, go on YouTube. I
do remember that.
Yeah, oh my God. It hurt because it was Ricciardo getting overtaken. But, oh God, that was like some serious bravery right there. The speed that they bring into that swimming pool section is just insane. It's absolutely insane.
Coming out of the tunnel.
Coming out of the tunnel to the Nouvelle chicane. That's
to the Nouvelle chicane, yeah. That's where you see it.
Overtakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the start-finish straight is often too short for anything meaningful to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we did see one genuine on-track overtake, and that was Lindblad on Albon, because Albon had a poor exit out of the last corner, and we actually saw one genuine on-track overtake on the start-finish straight. So we can be pleased about that. With Gasly, he was so gutted at the end of the race. He was completely beside himself. He kind of didn't know what to say, and you don't often see drivers like so bereft of comment at the end of the race, except maybe Lance Stroll. He's kind of famous for not really speaking much in the pen, but you could just tell how much it hurt Gasly. And as far as I'm aware, the Alpine team have lodged some sort of protest or right of review or something like that. So in the next couple of days, who knows? Maybe the penalty.
Wait. Are you saying because
will unfold?
Because Gasly got 2 5-second speeding
Yep.
the pit lane penalties, right? So where was he
P3.
before he got he was P3 before he got the
He was
second one?
P3. Yep.
Oh gosh, that's so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, so that the two of those together put him right back down behind the Racing Bulls. So he finished P7. So he got some points, not nothing, but considering finishing P3 in Monaco is pretty special.
Really
And then,
special. Really
for that.
special.
So
Hey, what did you think about the obviously we had two safety cars, and then they kind of were like, wait a second, look at the track, it's falling apart, and then we got a red flag, and they're all kind of getting there, kicking kind of bits of asphalt around. What did you tell me how you felt, Jace, when with 10 laps to go, we were told that we wouldn't be having a rolling start to the race, but we were having a stationary start. We were going back to the grid. And we had Lewis Hamilton next to Kimi. Like, were you excited? Because in my mind, that was so
that's the partisan in me coming out.
my heart sank when we didn't get the Max Verstappen Kimi off the lap one. We lost that, but I was just like, could this race be redeemed by the fact that we get Lewis and Kimi? But it wasn't to be. And do you know what? All season, Ferrari have been super quick off the line. Maybe less so now as everyone's kind of caught up with them. But that little micro mini turbo they've got was so quick. And obviously Kimi's biggest problem this whole year has been getting off the line. So I'm just like, is this the moment? Like, this is basically either Kimi just being like, I can do it twice off the line and prove that I put that demon to rest. Or we're going to see him fumble it. And he didn't. He did fine. He got off the line.
I guess it would have been good either way, right? Because if Hamilton had got past, that's a Hamilton win and a Ferrari at Monaco. That would have been that would have been beautiful. So I guess I would have been happy, but I was not that excited. As a partisan Kimi fan, I was thinking, not another test. But luckily he came through with flying colours. I tell you who also wasn't keen on the standing start, Sergio Perez. Twice he was in the wrong grid spot at the start and then at the restart. The communication for Perez in the first instance he was in the wrong grid spot, and in the second instance he was out of his proper grid spot, so he was not properly stopped.
He was going to be the first Cadillac in the points today. This was going to be Cadillac's first flipping point. And maybe the only chance they ever stand to get a point this year, and then it was just in the bin. It's just in the bin.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, right there.
I tell you what, though, he's dominated Bottas, hasn't he? Like,
completely.
I'm a Bottas fan, and like I'm disappointed in Bottas. I just feel like he's showing up. He's showing up with a hangover. It's like showing up to the office job with a hangover. He's just not. He won't be there next year. I don't think he'll be there next year.
I tend to agree with you. You know who else I don't think will be there next year?
Go on.
Fernando Alonso.
No, no.
I don't think he'll stick around. For what? For scratching together 1 point from the back of the grid, week in, week out? I don't think he sticks around for this. This is...
Do you know what, though? What I talked to my partner about the other night was like, will he just get frustrated and leave? Or will he think what we all know will happen, which is that next year, Adrian Newey will nail the car and it will be a rocket ship and he'll just live in regret for the rest of his life. I think that thought of like, I'll give Adrian Newey, the greatest car designer of all time, 1 more year to give me a good car. Do you think he will? Or do you think Lance Stroll's dad will just give him the flick and try and pay some money to get someone quicker? And I don't know.
I think
it might not be Alonso's choice to stay or not stay.
It's not Alonso, though. Alonso, despite his age, is still like a world-class performing athlete.
Absolutely.
Like, it's definitely not Alonso that's the weakest link here.
It's not.
It's the car. Yes, it's terrible. I don't know. I think you might be right, actually. He'll give Newey another chance, but maybe he might give him like a couple of races next year, because you can just see he's like dying inside, rocking up to the track with this piece of junk, having to drag that around from the back. I mean, battling with his teammate for P19. It's just not what he signed up for. This is the very definition of not what I signed up for. So I'd be a little bit worried if I were Lawrence Stroll, thinking, okay, if Alonso goes, who have I got to back him up? Who do I have? What's the name of that guy who was the F2 champion who was kicking around? Maybe Jack Doohan would step in.
George Russell? Maybe George Russell?
Stroll. I guess it depends how this season pans out, right? But like Piastri stuck around. Piastri didn't sort of throw his toys out of the pram. He's still there. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, so after everything we've talked about, are you still certain that it was an awful race, or are you not entertained, Jace, by today? Come on.
Okay, so I'll try and like put as neat a bow on this as I can.
Please.
Thanks to some potential FIA incompetency, we were gifted an entertaining second half of the race. So yeah, sure, yes. It was entertaining. Yeah. Oh, the other thought that occurred to me in the first half of the race, when Antonelli was zooming off, building up an insane, stupid 39-second lead, I was thinking, you know what? This is what it'll be like if Max leaves F1. This is actually a taste of F1 without Max, and I didn't like it. I did not like it one bit. As much as I would love for Max.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean? Explain that.
So there was a Max-sized hole at the front of the grid. Max is always the one who's going to keep you honest. In qualifying, he's the one who's going like within 1,000th of a second with you as the young pup, as Antonelli. He's the one who's going to point his car right in your path, and he's going to challenge you into turn one, no matter what the outcome. He's the one who's going to not complain on the radio endlessly, but he's going to get the job done. Or if he does complain, somehow we give him a pass. That's on us, not on him.
Do you know what? That's so eloquent, Jace. I mean, I went from loathing the guy because I was a Lewis fan in 21 to now just like deeply needing Max to be in there, causing like all sorts of trouble for everyone. I couldn't agree more. He's in the third or fourth fastest car with huge issues, and he's still within 1 millisecond of pole against someone who's not taking any credit away from Kimi, who was in the quickest car by a country mile. And he, like you say, Jace, he is 1 millisecond away. That is how good he is. And if he walks away, I think we can all just cry into our cornflakes for a little while. I think we're allowed that.
You know what's coming up next, Gav, don't you? The
next F1 race.
The Spanish Grand Prix.
Barcelona.
And I just cast your mind back 12 months when we last were in Barcelona. Do you remember how Kimi's race ended?
Yeah.
Big pop and the engine failed, and that was how he ended his race. Yeah. Do you remember how Max and George, how their races panned out? Do you remember what happened?
Do you know what? I don't.
Oh, I'm surprised. That was
are we talking
the moment.
Oh my gosh! Are we?
That was the moment.
Was it Barcelona where Max went full degenerate and just basically intentionally crashed into George? Yeah. And then banned the Guardian's F1 correspondent a year later for basically asking him, "Do you regret doing that because that lost you the championship?" Yes, I do remember.
So this is the roller coaster, of F1, Gav. I've just given you a little dose of Max love, and then I've snatched it right away from you again by reminding you of how bad he can be when he chooses to be the bad joker.
I want it now
in the pack. This is the drama, but this is coming up next week. So we skipped the Imola Grand Prix, where last year Antonelli had another engine failure. We went to Canada. Instead of finishing on the podium, this time Kimi won. We've been in Monaco. Last time Kimi crashed and finished dead last after playing the stupid triple, quadruple pit stop game that F1 gave us last year. He's finished first. Last year, he didn't even finish the race in Spain. What's it going to be? Will it be pole, fastest lap, victory again? Will it be 6 on the trot for young Antonelli? Or will all of his hopes crumble and fall away like they did last year? What do you think, Gav?
I mean, he's so far ahead now. He can have a few DNFs and not even be bothered, to be honest. But I think the question we want to be asking ourselves, and you know, last year all I wanted in the world was Lando to win. And this year I'm enjoying F1 and I'm not supporting anyone. I told you, I'm just agnostic. I want to see drama. I want to see tears. I want to see laughter. I want to see joy. I want to see all of it without caring about who wins. So I would put the question back on you. Like, as a massive Kimi fan, which you are, what would you prefer? Him just to sail through this whole European leg and just get further and further and further into the sunset? Or would you like someone to come back at him and have a nail-biting end to the year? What would you like?
I kind of want my cake and eat it too. So I'm a total cop-out here. I'll give you the honest answer, and then I'll give you the answer that I think I should have given.
Go on.
Which is, of course, I want Kimi to dominate. I want him to become the next Lewis Hamilton and just completely sail away. But I know that that's wrong. I know that's not how I should be, and that I am actively seeking therapy on this point. Of course, it's going to be more fun for all of us if there's a real dogfight for it to happen. You know, thinking Hamilton Rosberg 2016, thinking Verstappen Hamilton 2021.
Prost Senna.
Prost Senna. Absolutely. I want it to be dramatic from start to finish, and I think also it's more enjoyable if it's harder to win. I think that's a key part of it. When you look back on the dominant years of Hamilton or the dominant years of Schumacher, I think people do get a little bit bored. The dominant years of Vettel, and people started booing when he was qualifying.
Dominant years of Max, when he basically won almost every single race in the whole season because that car was so insane. Like,
and we were
it gets boring.
With P2. That P2 was all that was left to play for. So I do think it's better for us, as content creators and as fans of the sport, that we have something of interest to speak about. And God, let's hope it's not just FIA rule shenanigans giving us some crumbs to enjoy at the end of each Grand Prix weekend.
Well, I think you'll get your cake. I don't know if you get to eat it, but I think my prediction at this stage at race 6 of the year is that Kimi will be light years ahead of anyone by the end of the year. I think the confidence is there. I think the two problems that Kimi had coming into this year was, could he start a race and not go backwards five places? He's today proved that he could do that twice in one race under pressure. So I think he's done that, and he's also ticked off number 1 of the European leg, which was his difficult leg last year. So he will be going into Barcelona, I'm sure, feeling pretty calm and pretty confident. So I'm expecting to see a dominant Kimi. I hope someone comes at least and just puts a bit of pressure on, but I actually doubt it. Let's see.
Isn't it funny how George kind of isn't in the conversation?
He's so far from the conversation
at all. But he's got the same machinery. He's got the best chance, surely, out of all of them, to kind of meet Kimi where he is. And let's face it, in Canada, he was winning, and he would have won the race, except his engine let him down. So yeah, maybe we're being a bit too kind of doom and gloom about thinking about Kimi's dominance. Because
do you know what I remember, Jace? Go on. Sorry, you finish your thought.
I was just going to say he may not sail off into the sunset. It's only 2 or so DNFs for Kimi to suffer as well. That'll put George right back in it. And same with Lewis. Oh my God, Lewis! Can you imagine? Could you imagine?
Could you imagine?
Oh, I'm getting excited.
Well, also, I can't shake the memory of Lando in the second half of last year, just like locking in with his side of the garage and getting that car to work for him after really struggling with it. And what happens if as the cars develop and upgrades come through the year, it begins to swing George. Like it can we saw last year, it can happen. You can cut a year in half and find the odds go the other way. So yeah, but oh mate, don't tease me with the thought of Lewis Summit. Like all we need is 3 Kimi DNFs, and we've got Lewis back with a chance.
Luckily, we've got something like 72 races remaining, so there's plenty of points to go around. There is the potential. Okay, let's end on that high note of optimism that we may find ourselves, wouldn't that just be a story for the ages? One of the oldest drivers on the grid going toe-to-toe with the young and up-and-coming teenager vying for the title. It's like a generational handover moment. If Kimi wins, it's like passing the baton. If Lewis wins, it's him showing that he's still got it, and he goes out the greatest of all time in a blaze of glory as the best driver that F1's ever seen. Can you imagine?
I can imagine. Do you know, Lewis's affection for Kimi, I've never seen anything like it. I can imagine if Kimi in the final race, beat Lewis by 1 point, Lewis would hoist him onto his shoulders and like be cheering for him. Like that's the level of like affection that there is for, I don't know. Is it that Lewis sees himself in Kimi? Or is it just that he sees such pure talent? Or is it that he respects Kimi's kind of gentleness and humility, which I think he has a lot of? He's a very likable guy, Kimi. There's this affection there that it's lovely to see. Actually, it's lovely to see. The only thing I feel about it is that it almost feels like when I see Lewis come up to Kimi, put him on his shoulders, or like today come up to him in the car, and kind of, it does feel like the uncle vibe of like a fading uncle. Like it's almost as if Lewis knows he's on the way out, like that. You talked about that passing the baton. It feels like almost like Lewis is just like, well, while I'm still around, I'm just going to cheer this kid on. But it doesn't feel like someone I guess what I'm trying to say, Jace, is can you imagine like Lewis ever getting really aggressive and really fighting with Kimi? Or does he just love Kimi too much?
No.
Just loves Kimi too much.
I can't. I don't think Lewis has it in him at this stage in his career, frankly. I think he's just not that guy anymore, and that's okay. He doesn't have to be that guy. That time has passed. But yeah, I think it's true, and I think you also see it with Max as well. Max is very affectionate towards Kimi. Many times last year, Max had the arm around Kimi, trying to kind of lift his spirits as well when things weren't going well. I think they both just see echoes of their own careers in this young talent.
Yeah.
And they want to prop him up. But at the same time, the press keeps asking them to give him advice. And I think it's a little bit much now. Like, the guy's won 5 races on the trot. He's the youngest World Drivers' Championship leader. That he doesn't need advice. The advice that they gave him. The advice they gave him was just like, wait when the light goes out. Just wait 1 second. That's the advice that we give you, so they can get past. Yeah, it's just funny. I think there's like a line to be towed. On one side of it, you are celebrating the youngness of this person and their achievements at such a young age. And on the other side of that line, you're kind of being condescending and infantilizing the guy at the same time. And it's not an easy line for the media.
People need to stop rubbing him on the head and the little brother thing needs to kind of end fairly soon, and they just need to be like, you're just a great driver, like, doesn't really matter how old you are. I totally agree with the condescension thing. At the moment, Kimi doesn't seem bothered by being the little bro who's doing really well, that they're really proud of. But yeah, like, let's end that, and let's just get on with just respecting him as a man, because he's a man and he's a driver and he's a grown up. I agree. Anyway, mate, I will see you in Barcelona. Vamos a la playa. Buenos noches. And hasta la mañana.
Oh my God, you're just blowing my mind. I love it.